Hello guys, so I'm Richard Ting, and I'm going to talk a bit about how to develop compelling creative for multiple devices. So a quick disclaimer before I go through my presentation. Very complex topic, pretty much impossible to cover off on everything in 10 minutes, so hopefully I'm going to leave you guys with maybe 4 or 5 key points for you guys to consider when you're doing creative for multiple devices. So I've been working in this space for close to 10 years. And since I started in mobile about 10 years ago, the industry has faced tons of hurdles every year. 2001, no one really cared about mobile. In 2003, no one cared about mobile. And then in 2005, still no one cared about mobile. But then in about 2006, people started talking about mobile. But at the time, we had a lot of challenges. The carrier speeds were too slow. Data plans are too expensive. People were just not embracing mobile marketing or mobile content for that matter. In 2007, devices weren't powerful enough. 2008, not enough good content. Work was not strategic. Then eventually the iPhone came out. In 2009, last year, a lot of people were talking about mobile, but the budgets were still small. The work was not integrated. And in some cases, the work was just not global. So I think we're starting to get over those hurdles. But I think the big hurdle for 2010 and probably for 2011 is device and platform fragmentation gone wild. Lots of devices out there, lots of different screen sizes, pixel resolutions, platforms. So just take a quick look at some of these devices up here. We have the iPad at 9.7 inches, with screen pixel resolution of 768 by 1024. Some of these newer super phones like the Sprint EVO, Droid X, they're at 4.3 inches, screen resolution of 480 by 800. So we're really getting these much better screens to deliver much better content and richer experiences to consumers. And then over in the right-hand corner is the iPhone 4, which is still only 3.5 inches, but the pixel resolution is an astonishing 640 by 960. So we're starting to see high retina display type devices out there. But in addition to just these devices with lots of screen resolutions and different pixel resolutions, we're starting to see a lot of different application environments out there. So pretty much everyone has an app store these days. Apple has their app store with 225,000 apps. Android is growing very quickly at 100,000. Then you have these smaller players like Palm, BlackBerry, HP, and Microsoft. So the app world is definitely growing very quickly. And there's a lot of choices for agencies and brands to choose from. So these are lots of things that we have to think about when doing creative. So a couple key things to think about when doing creative across multiple devices and platforms is that you should always design towards the future. So from my perspective, I know that mobile phone screen sizes are skewing larger. I'm also starting to sense that there's less support for devices that are 240 pixels wide and devices that are 176 pixels wide. So eventually those smaller devices, hopefully they will just vanish from the face of the earth, and they're going to be replaced by devices that should have, at the very least resolution, 320 pixels wide. And now we're starting to see these super phones, like I mentioned before, devices that are 480 pixels and 640 pixels wide. So we're really moving into an exciting new space with fantastic new devices. Retina-like display will be available everywhere. So I know the iPhone is the first device to have Retina-like display, but I think the Sprint EVO has a pixel resolution upwards of 226 pixels per inch. So they're starting to move upwards in terms of sharpness of screen. And then HTML5 will rise, and I think web apps will be the future. So the prediction is that in the future, apps will still be around, but people are going to focus more of their efforts on apps that take advantage of the device functionality. So those are some key things to keep in mind. Another general rule of thumb that I try to coach our designers and technologists on is that don't try to support every device or every platform all at once. I think if you try to do that, it's a recipe for disaster. There's thousands of devices out there, and it would probably be cost prohibitive for a brand to try to tackle every single platform and device out there. So fragmentation is real, so be as targeted as possible. So before starting any mobile project, the recommendation from us is to do a target device analysis and recommendation. And essentially what that means is you have to examine who your target audience is. You have to decide on what regions you're targeting because devices vary across the board based off of what region you're targeting. Think about what are your marketing objectives, what are your business objectives, because if you're looking to create a fantastic brand experience, more than likely you'll lean towards an application. And then also think about the functionality that you're creating. So here's a screenshot of a sample target device analysis and recommendation slide. So when I was coming over here, I actually chatted with our PR person from RG, and she told me to take this slide out because she thought that this slide was not, I guess, creative enough. But I think before we even dive into creative, we have to really think about what are the devices that we're looking at, what browsers do we want to support, what application platforms do we want to support, and then once you start answering these questions, this grid starts to fill out. And then eventually you have a device recommendation. So this was actually a screenshot from a recent project that we worked on where it was for, I won't tell you who the client was, but we decided for the US we were going to target tier 1 browsers, which essentially were Sprint EVOs, Droid X's, iPhone devices. And then for China, we decided that we were going to support tier 3 browsers. These are devices that are more along the lines of feature phones. And then we also wanted to do an iPhone app for the US. So once you go through this process of thinking about all the different devices, you really start targeting what the creative could be. And then once you have a good understanding of the different tiers that you want to support, the features can vary across the different tiers. So I've heard some people call this fluid solutions. So the solution that you have in the US is going to vary from the solution that you have for Europe or Asia Pac. I've actually started calling it a tiered solution. So the most important thing to keep in mind in mobile is that there is no one-size-fits-all solution. So you have to create tiered solutions that vary across regions, tiered solutions that vary across your target audience. So here are some screenshots of creative. So this is a tiered solution that we created for one of our clients, Nike. So we worked on a lot of their mobile properties across the iPad, the iPhone, and the Android. Now this is a HTML5 mobile web solution. But as you can see, there's a lot of consistency in the creative, in the messaging, and the layout across these different platforms. And there are also differences, though, in terms of how the creative is laid out. So the iPad has a much larger screen resolution. Images are bigger. There's more copy above the page fold. And then it starts to vary as you tear down from iPad to iPhone to Android. So then I was also curious about what other people are doing as well across the industry. And ESPN they've always been at the forefront of mobile for the longest time. And I've always been a big fan of ESPN Mobile, so I took some screenshots of what ESPN is doing. And as you can see, if you look at the BlackBerry version of ESPN's mobile site, they keep pretty much all their links over on the right-hand side, just because on the BlackBerry, the BlackBerry doesn't support more sophisticated things like drop-down. So if you look at the iPhone, all those links that are exposed on the BlackBerry are bundled up into this menu drop-down on the iPhone. And then also on the iPhone, since the iPhone supports video much better than the BlackBerry, you start to see content that has links into video. So what ESPN has essentially done is they've created a tiered solution across these different devices. And then also for the iPad, there's a full web version, but then they also have the mobile version as well. So tiered solutions is the key. And then the other important thing to really talk about, and this is more of a technology thing, here's a very simplistic technical architecture diagram of what a CMS could look like. So if you're providing tiered solutions across different platforms, really on the server side, you want to have all the code set up that when a user hits the website, the server does all the work. So this is a configuration engine that eventually pushes out templates across the various devices. And it's all integrated with the web-based CMS as well.